Hey there, this is Jen T. Grace. I am the founder and CEO of Publish Your Purpose, and I am here with Nell, who is going to talk to us about her new book, Going First. Yes, I'm glad that you have a visual. How are you doing, Nell?
I'm so good, Jen. So glad to be with you. Thanks for setting this up.
Yes. Oh, I'm a broken record for sure when I'm always saying, like, I love this particular time in the process where it's like, we did so much to get here, and now we can just kind of sit back and celebrate and share with others all of the awesome things that you're doing in the world. So I would love to just kind of start with that, to just kind of share, going first. There's a lot of things that could mean. So what does that mean in relation to your book?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So to me, going first is actually, it sounds kind of like grand, maybe, or dramatic or something. And I actually mean it in like really kind of mundane, little personal ways. One of my missions in the world is to depressurize purpose. I worked for 10 years in very like frontline, intense, not-for-profit settings, working with refugee moms and kids and mental health and so forth, which was incredible work. I learned so much. I, felt very impactful. But actually, after 10 years, I realized it wasn't where I felt my skills, my profile, my interests were most aligned. And so since then, for about 15 years now, I've been working with leaders to just think about, like, from your seat, whether that is an investment banker or a bagel maker or anything in between those two very extreme ends of the career spectrum, or you don't work and you're a community member or a parent or a caretaker, how can you have impact and feel really purposeful? Not because of guilt or shame or I want to get to heaven or whatever, but just because it's good for us. And so my new company is 3D Performance, which is, it's good for us in 3 dimensions. Me, it's good for us as individuals. We can talk more about that. Deep research in that vein. It's good for we, teams and organizations. Again, deep research, not like woo-woo, but bottom line, retention, engagement costs, all of that. Top line, innovation, collaboration, growth. And it's good for the world. I really deeply believe that very few of us want to burn more carbon than we need to burn, or be misogynistic or whatever else it might be. We're just kind of caught in a system that has shuttered us some that way. So that's the spiel. And going first just means, what is one little thing that you could take a little step of courage today, whether that's opening a conversation at home about feminism or taking a moment to breathe and be together in a meeting at work, little things.
I love that. And so, because I love the accessibility, like it just feels like it's attainable for people rather than having this big, huge strategic initiative that lands flat because there's not buy-in and then people don't actually know what to do to implement it.
And then people are like, it's too hard. See, we're not an impact company. That's not us. We just blank. And it's like, okay, so do blank in a way that you're proud to tell your grandkids about or your dogs.
And so for you, like, what type of companies and organizations, like, what is your, because, this to me feels like, I don't want to say, I feel like a consumer version kind of waters down my intention of what I mean there, but it feels like it's the accessible to anybody to be able to kind of tap into your incredible knowledge base. But when you're showing up in the world, what are the types of organizations that you personally are working with?
Yeah. So really, honestly, it's any of them, with a certain psychographic filter. And so what matters is the leader, right? It matters that there is a leader at any level. I mean, obviously, if we're going to come in and work with the whole organization, it has to be a leader with budget and decision-making power. But I also mean just a leader of oneself or a leader of one's own career, a leader of one's family. But there has to be a willingness to explore oneself. First of all, what do I like? What am I good at? What do I not, frankly, care so much about? That's okay, right? We don't all need to save the Amazon. So I think that willingness is really important. And right now, it's the other piece about going first is that this isn't the mainstream right now, unfortunately. I think it used to be. I know there's a lot of indigenous wisdom about this, right? Of we're all one system, take care of the world because it's good for yourself. But right now in this moment, we have gotten to a pretty extractive form of capitalism and society. And so it's not the norm. And so it takes someone who is willing to say, I think there's a better way. And I think it's actually going to pay off. There just might be a little bit of friction and discomfort and maybe investment of time, attention, or money in the meantime. But, you know, the clients look like American Express and Google and Smucker and smart startups that, you know, you've never heard of and hopefully will, the National Park Service in the public sector, nonprofits, you know, in the middle. So it's really not about an industry or a stage or a geography or any of that as much as a human who's willing to step in and do the work.
Yeah, which, yes, I'm glad that you clarified that, because it further reinforces the original points you were making about how there's such an individual component to this. And so with that, you have a playbook. So talk about the playbook a little bit.
Yeah, I have that right here. So the playbook, you know, exactly your point of accessibility, as you know, right? That's what we talked about. And that is really my mission with the playbook, because I've been leading these programs for 15 years in a variety of ways, for groups, for individuals, for students, for pre-retirees who aren't ready to retire, for women reentering the workforce, and executives and C-leaders in the middle. And that's amazing work. I love it. It's not cheap in terms of time or money, right? We go deep and it takes time and energy. And so for the people who are willing and able to do that, it's amazing. We always have versions of scholarship or pay what you can to make that somewhat financially accessible, but the time is non-negotiable. And you know, the bulk of folks have to pay full freight. And so this was all about how can we distill this thinking from the book, which is this framework around, you know, the spheres of impact we all have. The framework is honestly very simple by design, right? It's very accessible, very human. But if you don't do anything with it, it doesn't really matter. You know, we've all read amazing books, and then what, you know? And so the playbook was my intent that, look, for $19.99, this is probably, I don't know, 30 hours, 50 hours worth, if you want to take the time with it, to really think and work through these questions on your own, or in a book club, or in an ERG, or with your leadership team, or, you know, whatever group it might be. And look, when groups want me to come in and do a little bit, I'm thrilled. But it's designed to really stand on its own in that, you know, as you were saying, that kind of retail accessible DIY version.
I love that. And you're in the playbook, there was no skimping on the playbook. So even when you hold it up, like, it's sturdy. This is not just a flimsy, we're throwing together 20 pages to pretend that there's actionable steps to take from here. But the level of intentionality and strategy behind how this was done, I think, is really remarkable. And I feel like you just said, it's basically packaging 30 to 50 hours of that individual work. If someone were kind of like, that's a heavy lift. So how do you help navigate people where they read the book and they're like, wow, this is transformational. There's so many things I can do, to just these little baby steps to kind of integrate into my life and then subsequently those around me. But then beyond that, they're like, well, now I have to get the playbook. Now they're knee deep into the playbook and they're like, wow, this is a lot. This is intense. She's asking me to do a lot of things. What is that organic, you know, is there an organic next step for people to engage with you on that helps kind of just actually make that learning more three-dimensional?
Yes, thank you for asking, and exactly the dream. And so we're ready with that. Starting in January, I'll be gathering a group open to whomever. Again, there's a fee on a monthly basis, but it's totally pay what you can. So we'll set kind of fair value, and then people will pay what they're able to pay. No pressure, no shame. We'll meet twice a month on the new moon and the full moon to leverage that natural wisdom that is so powerful and important to work with. And the new moon session will be a little bit of teaching. So we'll dig into one of the spheres, of which there are 6, as well as, some of the basic principles of purpose for performance. There will be a guest speaker with me to kind of enrich. I always do this stuff communally. There's 150 interviews that went into the book. So it's all very crowdsourced knowledge. And so that'll be a bit more of a teaching session, still engaging. No one can expect to come on a webinar with me and not be engaged and expected to talk and think. So that'll be the new moon. And then the full moon will actually be a little bit of live coaching. So I will choose a lucky victim to come on stage and do just 15 or 20 minutes to really model what the thinking looks like and just provide that community. In these 15 years, there's such power in just seeing that other people are flailing with this stuff too. And again, it's college kids, it's retirees, it's powerful C-level executives with 7, 8, 9-figure budgets and thousands of not direct reports, but employees. All these are just human questions. And so to see that live, and then the second part of that is kind of an ask me anything model on the content. So it'll be really fun. These sessions are so, look, the world is heavy and hard right now. My God, these last few weeks, and now a shooting. I mean, there is no end of suffering and strife. And so we don't ignore that. And the power place that we can tap into is joy and purpose and hope. And so that's really what these gatherings are about. Look, there's amazing interpersonal connections between the participants, the speakers, myself. There's real learning. There's accountability when you have that monthly show up, and actually biweekly by the time you get to both. So anyway, that's the natural next step for people, whether you've read the book or not. It's okay.
We'll encourage you to read it first. But I would imagine as part of this program,
or
there
during.
will be, part of it during that you'll be talking about different components of the book that are relevant. You can say, hey,
totally.
Your homework is to go do pages 15 through 80 of the workbook this week, or the playbook this week.
Bingo.
I love that. I'm putting your email address, your website and email address along the bottom for folks so they can just definitely see that how to contact you. Also, you're available on LinkedIn because right now this is invite only. So I think that's really important to kind of mention, and start sometime middle of November, I believe you said.
There's 2 sample sessions, November 16th and 17th. So email me for invites to those, and that'll give you a taste of what these January sessions are going to be. Beautiful. I think the first in January's new moon around the 12th or 13th. So there will be signups to join that coming soon.
That is beautiful. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, good. So if we were to wave a magic wand and it's, I don't know, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and whatever period from now, and you're on the receiving end of feedback or some kind of revelation or aha or something that somebody gleaned as a result of reading your book, what are you hoping that conversation might look like?
It's really the shining gem at the top of the hill would be a CEO or a chief people officer or a CFO, sometimes their point of contact, some C-level executive saying, thank you for unlocking a really specific, concrete, doable way to engage my people at their best. We've been thinking about engagement and purpose and employees and ESG and all this reporting, and it's so overwhelming. And honestly, I was starting to resent it a little bit. I was overwhelmed, and everybody was coming to me whining, and these friggin' millennials. And this is, we've bought the playbook for everybody. You were excited about your session to kick off next week. And it's just so doable. And I'm starting to see already the response just from this little thing. So I get now how we can engage and invest in a manageable way in a tough economic environment and really get the benefit without having to uproot our entire operating system or invest millions of dollars.
I love that. And I'm curious, just on the ESG side of things, like what type of, I don't want to say backlash, but like what type of pendulum swinging might you be seeing right now with just kind of everything that's going on globally in relation to kind of ESG work or the commitment to that type of work?
Yeah. Two main buckets that I see. The first, frankly, is just overwork and resentment, words, against all the reporting and all the different standards, right? I mean, you and I are deeply engaged in the B Corp community and Be Local here in Connecticut, which is one very clear, very comprehensive set. And, that's one thing for companies like us who choose to do that. And, not easy, especially now if you're talking about an espresso or a beauty counter, these bigger companies, but fine. But there are, I don't know, 50, maybe more, my friends who are in private equity and have portfolios, or other friends at operational companies, or, we have colleagues who do consulting around this, because there are just a million with slightly different questions and slightly different deadlines and different formats. And so the overwhelm of that on top of the busy world that we all are living in is really tough. And so I think there's just simple logistical and effort resentment on that side.
Yeah.
And then the other is that we don't quite believe all of the research and a lot of examples that show it is good for business to take a holistic, medium to long-term view of all of our stakeholders. It's not doing penance. It's not bending to the millennial trend. It's not a passing fade. It is good for business. And again, there's HBR, longitudinal, long-term studies of return on assets. When individual humans who work for your company understand the purpose of what you're doing, the return on assets is literally higher. So, and again, myriad versions. Take your flavor of employee engagement or innovation. I did the company with Lisa, a mattress company that used to be a B Corp. I think their certification lapsed, but same values and approach. And during COVID, they delivered a mattress for hospitals, specifically for patients with respiratory issues, high COVID. They from whiteboard conception to delivery to the first hospital was about 68 days, if I'm recalling correctly, versus their normal production time of 14 months.
Wow.
And so the next product, commercial sales, let's make some money product that they were releasing came out in, I think it was 83 days. So a little bit of the COVID quick, rush emergency cause, but less than a fifth.
Yeah.
And so it's clarifying, it's motivating, right? And so anyway, I just think we still see it as this like penance or side thing, or we took too much, so we have to give back. One of the great quotes is, if you don't take too much, you don't have to give back. And that's the point about just doing this from the beginning and being really thoughtful. I think those are the two sticking points that I see right now.
Yeah, that I feel like that all makes perfect sense. And you mentioned the B Corp movement, and I feel like it wouldn't be me if I didn't bring it up. But like, at least with the B Corp mantra of people and planet before profits, I feel like that's at least, it's still very big picture in the grand scheme of things. But at the same time, I think the average person can kind of wrap your head around the idea that you're putting the people and the planet before your profits. But at the same time, I feel like that's so limiting, because it's not actually what the data shows. It's not saying that you have to put these two things before profitability. It's actually showing that if you do this, you can be more profitable. And so I feel like that's where the messaging is just a little bit off, because to your point, there's so much data that shows that by having this intentionally woven into the fabric of your company, that you're going to perform better. And it just, like, I feel like we have just a large messaging issue that somehow needs to be tackled.
Amen. Yeah, no, I think it's really, I think, look, we're not great at integrated gray thinking, and so some of the messages around, it might be slightly longer term profit, it might be more, but agree that the prioritizing of that people and planet come before profit, I think is really misguided and off-putting, to be fair, right? We're business owners, we get that. No profit, no
business.
I guess no margin, no mission is the fun one. But yeah, no profit, you're gone.
Yeah. And I think that then it brings us to kind of, you had mentioned before, like us collaborating on a local level here in Connecticut, anyway, around Be Local Connecticut, which is the affiliate, if you will, the local chapter of B Lab, which is the organization that does the certification for B Corps. I feel like, to me anyway, it gives people like us opportunities because we're both on the board, both part of the foundation of it. I feel like we're strategy partners in figuring out like what our mission is and what our vision is for Connecticut. But I feel like there's so much little potential, to your point of going first. Like there's so many little opportunities for someone to engage with an organization, not even necessarily a Be Local specifically. Obviously that would be wonderful for us since we're so entrenched in this community, but like even someone, and there's like a local sustainable council in their area, to just take that first step to just go have a conversation to figure out what is it that you can do as an individual that can help kind of keep moving this movement forward. So I'm curious, like if you have any kind of, I don't want to say calls to action because I don't really mean it that way, but like kind of like a also not a plea, can't find the right word for this, but like just
an invitation.
An invitation. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying. An invitation for folks.
Yeah. I think exactly. I mean, I think another unfortunate part of this movement, if we want to call it that or whatever, is again, there's a lot of kind of shame and know-it-allness or, positioning. And I just think it's like, again, we just want to be the people that our dogs think we are, or, we just want to make our grandkids proud. And that's very human. It's very universal. And so, I would just really encourage people, like, don't be shy, start where you are. And that might be like, you don't have to talk to anybody, but like in the grocery store, go on a little hunt and like find the little bee on the 7th generation paper towels, and just see that. And then like look for the B, which means a B Corp certified company, alongside maybe a fair trade logo or whatever else it might be. And then come home and like Google like bcorporation.net or Be Local in your geography. Because that's one, money is one of the spheres in the book, one of the 6 spheres of impact. And we talk about, the chapter is called Money, 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 not because it's more important, but because it matters what you buy, what you donate to, and what you invest in. And so look, we all buy stuff, right? So there's one question of what can I not buy actually, and reducing consumption. But then when you do buy, can it be local? Can it be from a woman-owned business? Can it be a B Corp, right? Is there some way to make that money reflect what you care about, which probably isn't enriching Procter and Gamble? And not that they're bad guys, right? But the scales have just been a bit tipped. And so if we're gonna, recalibrate wealth between genders, between races in this country, we need to support the people who are, on our main streets doing it. So I think that kind of shopping piece is really compelling because it's just really accessible. There is a deep, deep rabbit hole you can go down to learn about these companies, but you don't have to necessarily get permission or join a board or, do anything more formal. So I love for people to start there. And then honestly, the other piece, especially in these days, the center and foundational sphere in the model is self. And so do you need a little more sleep? You need to, make that walk a little longer and not be stumbling over yourself as you multitask on email. Do you need to rejigger and drink a little more water so you're hydrated? Like, what is it that you need? Because that is not self-indulgent. It's not, an optional. It's a mandate to be your best self in service to whatever it is you want to do in the world.
Yeah, it's very holistic because we know that if we're taking care of ourselves, it's easier to take care of others.
Yeah.
And do better in the world.
Yeah. 1000%.
I love this so much. Is there so you have your website that is scrolling across the bottom of the screen so people can find all the information that might want to find there. Do you have any other kind of fun things that are on the horizon for you that you might want to share?
Yeah, thank you. So, I have kind of my framework in this, which is in the book and out there for folks. There's 2 tools that I plug into the coaching when it fits for people or teams that are really fun and do have some invitations as well. One is called the GC Index, and it looks and feels like a psychometric that, we've all taken however many of, but it's actually the only that I know of that is an organometric. And so it measures our energy for contribution in teams. And so what we're seeing for clients is that it's just a game changer to really open those conversations around collaboration, which in a remote environment, in a stressful environment, is really powerful to understand. How am I naturally driven to contribute? Not what am I good at, but just what's my natural energy, and how can we then leverage our complementarity, our diversity, to get the team ahead. And so it just opens conversations in a really non-personalized, objective, productive way. And so doing a session on that November 29th. So same, just drop me an email or find me on LinkedIn. Again, the tool is the GC index, as in game changer. So GC index is one. And the second one that is really fun is work with horses. So it turns out horses are the second most successful species. They've been thriving for 56 million years, despite climate spikes, tectonic shifts, humanity, and modern development and industrialization. They're thriving. They're prey animals, right? So a lot of times we think they're like big and a little scary. They might kick me or bite me, but they're worried about mountain lions and cougars and so forth. And so the work and the wisdom is that they have this culture. They're herd animals, and they have this culture, which is why they've been thriving. And turns out that culture is very informative as to how we could and arguably should, in a lot of ways, lead. It's leading from behind. Very often, it's the woman horse, the mare, who is the leader of the pack. And one of her most important priorities is to conserve energy. Because if you imagine, if a mountain lion comes, I got to lead this pack away, right? And that's going to take a lot of energy, because mountain lions are pretty fast, I've heard. And so we got to hoof it, literally. And so I have to really conserve my energy. So if I need to keep somebody in line who's not staying safe or beating up on a smaller member of the herd, I can't rant and rave and run over to them and say, "What are you doing? Stop this." Not okay, because that is really not going to leave me safe later. And so I flick an ear, or I go to bite, or I stomp my foot. And hopefully that's enough. And if it's not, I might need to actually give a nip or something, but it's this very beautiful, loving sense of keeping people in a communal group, moving forward to a shared goal. And so when we bring leaders and teams out to this nonverbal, which is powerful, obviously, but powerful wisdom around being together, being safe, joy is part of horse culture, but when we bring people out, it's just amazing to see what people get. And so for those of you in the kind of New York, Connecticut area, I'll have a monthly session at my barn up in North Salem, New York. It's probably starting in March, snow pending. And so that too will be on the site, and just sign up, come join for half a day. I also do more immersive retreats, which are in Italy, which is delightful, and Santa Fe, for those of you willing to get on a plane.
I feel like these are all wonderful destinations, especially where the barn is. Like, that part of New York is just absolutely gorgeous. Oh, so amazing.
Great farm stands. Pick up some dinner on your way home. There is a Metro North train, so it's not bad. It's a close getaway. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. Nell, thank you as always. I enjoy every conversation we have, and it's fun just kind of seeing you like tapping into your genius, where it's just all of this great stuff is just coming out at once. So I really appreciate that, and so grateful that we partner together on bringing this into the world.
Mostly for writers out there, get this.
I love it. Thank you for the plug. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for everyone watching, you can see how to get in touch with Nell. Check out her LinkedIn. If you missed this and you're like, I know how to get Jen instead, just ask me. I will make the connection. And then your book is available everywhere books are sold. So if anyone would like to go ahead and find your book, they are welcome to do so. My big plug is always for bookshop.org, which is also a B Corp. And so going back to, this whole idea of how can we just make one different decision that's going to impact, impact the whole. I think bookshop.org is a fantastic place to purchase
Yeah,
books.
and we actually got them to do there's a little discount, so I'm pretty sure last time I checked, it's actually a few dollars cheaper than Amazon. So
That's
it
even
may
better.
not get to you in 48 hours, but that'll save you can have an extra little walk before you have to dive into this beast. So
Yes, it's
bookshop.org all the way.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Nell. I really appreciate it, and I will see you soon.